I was 14 the night my mother locked the door behind me and left for paradise. No warning. No goodbye. Just the hollow slam of the deadbolt sliding into place, and the sound of rolling suitcases down the driveway. I stood there in the dim porch light, clutching a crumpled hoodie and my school backpack, watching as my mother and her husband Brad piled into an Uber headed for the airport. They didn't look back. Not once. It wasn't the first time they'd made me feel like an afterthought, but this time, it was official. The caption on her Instagram post the next morning made it sickeningly clear. Finally off to celebrate our real family. No more drama. No more freeloaders. Just us. A photo of her, Brad, and his two sons, Ryan and Caleb, smiling in front of their cruise ship like they were starring in some twisted version of a toothpaste commercial. I guess I was the drama. The freeloader. The disposable one. They left no note. No food. Not even a blanket on the porch. Just a voicemail from Brad, slurred and smug, saying, "You've got friends, don't you? Go figure it out. We're done babysitting." I did have one friend. Tyler. His mom took one look at me, ragged, confused, eyes full of shame, and told me I could stay as long as it takes. She didn't ask questions. Just handed me a bowl of spaghetti and a blanket. I don't think I spoke that entire first night. I didn't cry, either. I just stared at the ceiling, hearing Brad's voice echo in my head. You were never part of the plan. Brad had hated me from day one. I wasn't his blood, and he made sure I felt it. He had two sons from a previous marriage, Ryan, the golden boy, and Caleb, the baby genius. Me? I was the leftover. The walking inconvenience. My mom didn't defend me. Not once. In fact, the longer she was married to Brad, the more she seemed to shrink away from me. When I'd ask about my real dad, she'd scoff. He walked out on us. Never sent a penny. Forget him. You have Brad now. But Brad didn't raise me. He tolerated me. On good days, he ignored me. On bad days, he'd call me lazy, broken, and tell me I'd be out of the house by 16 anyway. My mother said nothing. Sometimes she even agreed with him. I used to believe I deserved it. That maybe I really was defective. I worked after school, kept my grades up, stayed out of trouble, but nothing was ever enough. When they left me behind, it didn't feel like abandonment. It felt like confirmation. Proof that I had been unwanted all along. But that same week, something happened that changed everything. It was small, easy to miss. I was digging through my backpack, looking for a homework folder, when I found an envelope tucked inside a side pocket. It was old, yellowed. My name was on the front in handwriting I didn't recognize. Inside were 3 birthday cards, all addressed to me, all signed Love, Dad. I froze. My hands shook. I read them over and over, trying to make sense of what I was holding. There was no way. My father was gone. He'd left us. That's what she told me. But there they were. The first one said, "Happy 8th birthday, buddy. I miss you every day." The second one had a gift card still taped inside, expired now. The third ended with, "I'm sorry your mom won't let me see you. But I'll keep trying." The postmarks didn't lie. These cards were real. Which meant everything she said, everything I believed, was a lie. My father hadn't walked out on me. He had been trying to reach me all along. And just like that, my world cracked open. I stared at those cards for hours. Part of me wanted to believe they were fake. Some twisted prank. But the handwriting was different from anything my mom or Brad would fake. The way he wrote my name, Eli, was careful, warm, like he meant it. The postmarks lined up with my birthdays. The details were too specific to be anything but real. The next day, I waited until Tyler's family left for work and school, then I searched my old backpack again. I found another envelope. This one was thicker, rubber banded together with a note on top. "Your mother returned these unopened. I'm keeping them in case you ever get to read them. Love, and Sharon." I didn't even know I had an Aunt Sharon. Inside were nearly a dozen letters, all from my dad. Some typed, some handwritten, all desperate, aching, confused. He wrote about missing me, about the court dates my mother skipped, about the certified letters returned with no forwarding address, about sending child support checks that were cashed but never acknowledged. In one, he begged, "Please, Eli, if you ever get this, I never gave up on you. I wanted to raise you. I never stopped." It was like a dam broke inside me. Years of confusion, anger, sadness, all of it flooding out at once. She lied. Brad lied. And all this time, my real father, my actual family, was trying to reach me. Tyler's mom came home and found me still sitting on the floor, surrounded by open letters. She read the look on my face before I said a word. "You want to find him, don't you?" she asked gently. I nodded. I have to. The next day, she helped me call Aunt Sharon. I was terrified. What if they didn't want me anymore? What if I was just a ghost from a life they left behind? But when Sharon picked up and I said my name, she started crying. Not soft tears, gut-deep sobbing. Eli? Is it really you? Honey, we've been looking for you for years. Within a week, I was on a bus 3 hours north to meet her and my dad. I don't remember getting off the bus. I just remember him, standing there, wringing his hands, like he couldn't believe I was real. His eyes were red, not from sadness, but relief. He didn't rush me, didn't lecture me. He just pulled me into the tightest hug I've ever felt and whispered, "I'm so sorry. I tried everything. I never stopped loving you." We both cried. For different reasons, maybe, but we cried together. Living with my dad was like stepping into a different dimension. There were no screaming matches, no walking on eggshells, no twisted rules that changed based on Brad's mood. Just calm, space, respect. My dad worked as a mechanic and didn't have much, but he gave me what I'd never had: safety. And the truth. He showed me court documents, letters from lawyers, bank records. My mother had accepted nearly 5 years of child support. She cashed the checks, but told me he abandoned us. She blocked his number, changed her email, even told the school he wasn't allowed to contact me. When I asked him why he didn't fight harder, he looked at me with hollow eyes and said, "I did, Eli. But the courts didn't listen. And your mom? She made sure you never saw anything I sent." I used to think I wasn't worth fighting for. Now I knew the truth. I was worth it. She just didn't want me to know that. By the time I turned 15, I had a new school, a part-time job, and a real shot at healing. My dad helped me open my first savings account. Sharon helped me apply for scholarships. Slowly, I began to believe I could become more than the boy they left behind. And as I looked back at that porch, the one they locked me out of, I stopped feeling like a victim. I wasn't their mistake anymore. I was their warning. For the first time in my life, I felt wanted. Living with my dad wasn't always easy. He worked long hours at the shop, sometimes came home with grease on his face and nothing left in the tank but a tired smile and a pat on the back. But he showed up. Every single day. He asked me how school was. He packed my lunch when I had early classes. He helped me fix up an old laptop from the junk pile so I could study. When I got sick that winter, he sat beside my bed through the night, feeding me soup and changing the cool rag on my forehead. No sighing, no complaining, just a quiet presence that made me feel like I mattered. It was the first time I felt like I belonged anywhere. I started to open up, told him things I never had the courage to say out loud. Like how Brad used to joke that I'd never be anything but a leech. How my mom once said I ruined her life. That the only reason she didn't dump me into foster care was because it would look bad. My dad didn't interrupt. He just listened, his hands clenched tight on his knees. When I finally stopped, he looked at me and said, "You didn't ruin anything. They did." Those words stuck with me. I poured myself into school, not because I wanted to prove them wrong, but because I finally wanted to prove something to myself. That I was capable. That I could build a life with clean hands in my own name. By 17, I was tutoring other kids in math and applying for business scholarships. I'd wake up early to study, work weekends detailing cars with my dad, and still find time to volunteer at a local shelter. I didn't sleep much. I didn't party. I was too hungry for something bigger. I got into a state university on a full ride. On move-in day, my dad hugged me and slipped me a folded-up check. "For emergencies," he said. I opened it after he left. It was everything he had in savings. I never cashed it, but I kept it in my wallet for years, a reminder of how much someone could love you even when they had nothing to give. College was a different world. I finally found people who thought like me, who saw money as strategy, not just survival. I majored in finance, minored in data analytics, and joined every investment club I could. I wasn't flashy. I didn't talk much in class, but I watched. I learned. And I built. By the time I graduated, I had internship offers from 3 different firms. I picked the one that would teach me the most, even if the pay was crap. I wanted knowledge more than comfort. I didn't forget what they did to me. I just put it in a box, sealed it, tucked it away, until one night, at a networking event, I overheard a name I hadn't heard in years. Brad Whitmore? Yeah, his construction company's bleeding cash. Word is, he sunk too much into a development that never broke ground. Real estate bubble popped, and now he's scrambling. I froze. That name, Brad, still triggered something deep in my chest. I hadn't spoken to him or my mother in almost a decade. Not since the day they left me behind like a broken appliance. I went home and looked it up. And sure enough, Whitmore Contracting was hanging on by a thread. Lawsuits, missed deadlines, rumors of bankruptcy. And in one trade journal, I saw the quote that lit a fuse I didn't even know was still burning. Brad had been asked about the financial troubles. He'd said, "We had to carry dead weight for too long. That kind of baggage drags a business down." He didn't say my name, but he didn't have to. That night, I stared at my reflection and made a decision. I wasn't going to send a letter. I wasn't going to show up and scream at them or beg for closure. I was going to do what they taught me. Play the game, just better. I spent the next 2 years building something no one saw coming. By day, I continued working at a boutique investment firm, soaking up everything I could about asset evaluation, shell companies, corporate acquisitions. By night, I was laying the groundwork for something else, something personal. I created a private holding company registered through a network of clean proxies. On paper, it looked like a mid-tier real estate capital firm expanding into the construction market. Nothing flashy, nothing suspicious, just enough credibility and liquidity to look real, and just enough opacity to make it impossible to trace back to me. I called it Ironhold Capital. I hired a corporate attorney I trusted to manage communications. I built a small team of consultants who specialized in distressed asset recovery. They didn't know who I was or why I wanted Brad Whitmore's company. All they knew was that I was the silent founder, the money behind a potential acquisition. From there, it was just a matter of bait. Through Ironhold, we sent out subtle feelers in trade publications and broker circles, whispers that we were looking for a struggling firm to invest in and revitalize. Within weeks, Brad's people reached out. Desperate, eager. They sent over a prospectus riddled with half-truths, glossed over debts, inflated future projections, the kind of amateur fluff that told me Brad still thought he was the smartest guy in every room. The same guy who once told me, "Paperwork only matters if someone bothers to read it." I read every word. Over the next few months, our team played the part of the interested investor. We negotiated, flattered, asked for endless documentation. Brad and my mother got more and more eager. I watched from behind the curtain, never revealing who I was. At one point, they even sent a video call invite for a face-to-face with Ironhold's founder. I declined and sent my lawyer instead. My mother chimed in through the screen, older now, but her voice still had that clipped, performative warmth. "We're thrilled about this opportunity," she said, like they hadn't abandoned their son to the streets years earlier. "We just want to build something real, something lasting." It took everything in me not to laugh. Eventually, we reached a deal. Ironhold would provide an infusion of capital, but in exchange, Brad and my mother had to sign over full controlling interest of the company, plus their home, as collateral. They balked at first, but their debts were mounting and Ironhold played hardball. No collateral, no deal. They signed everything. And still, they didn't know. That's what stunned me most, not the ease of the trap, but how willing they were to believe that someone out there would still want to save them. That they were too clever, too important to fail. That even after a lifetime of burning bridges, someone would show up and hand them a life raft. When the ink dried, I flew home. I stayed at a nice hotel in the city, booked a boardroom under the Ironhold name, and arranged one final meeting under the pretense of introducing the true investor. They were curious, maybe even a little smug. I arrived exactly on time. I wore a tailored navy suit, no tie, and a neutral expression. When I walked into the room, they both turned. My mother squinted, confused. Brad looked annoyed, like I was a secretary who wandered in by mistake. Then I said it. "Hello, Brad." "Mom." The color drained from her face. Brad's mouth tightened. Neither spoke. I dropped the file folder onto the table and sat down. "That's the deed to your house. And the title transfer for the company. All of it, yours. Or at least, it was." Brad stood up. "What the hell is this? You're behind Ironhold." I smiled. "I am Ironhold." My mother whispered, "Eli." "Funny," I said, leaning back. "You remembered my name after all." I let them sit in silence while the truth settled in. No shouting. No gloating. Just gravity. Legal. Binding. Final. "You taught me something," I told them. "That paperwork only matters if someone bothers to read it." Well, I read every word. They looked like ghosts. And I wasn't finished yet. Brad tried to bluff first. Of course he did. He puffed out his chest and said, "You think this scares me? We'll challenge the contracts." "You think I didn't keep backups?" I tilted my head. "Feel free." Everything you signed was reviewed by your own counsel. You initialed every clause. You were under no duress. The deal is airtight. My mother looked like she might faint. She reached for his arm, but Brad shook her off and snapped. You little piece of... I cut him off with one word. Careful. He froze. I know you like to yell when you're cornered. But this isn't your living room, and I'm not 14 anymore. My mother finally spoke. Eli, please. We didn't know. We thought you were okay. You knew exactly what you did, I said. You locked the door and left. You posted it online. You told the world you were done with your freeloader. She looked like she wanted to argue. But what could she say? That it was a misunderstanding? That Brad made her do it? I didn't need an apology. I didn't want one. I wanted them to sit in the mess they made. I built Ironhold from scratch, I continued. I took every dollar I earned and turned it into something real. I played by the rules. No shortcuts. No lies. Brad scoffed. So this is revenge? You waited years to screw us. No. This is justice. You built your empire on control and manipulation. Now you're going to watch someone smarter and more ethical dismantle it, legally. I handed them a final folder. Inside was the new board structure. Brad was removed as CEO. Their home was scheduled for auction within 90 days unless bought back in full. Every asset they once bragged about now sat on Ironhold's books. I stood to leave, but then paused. One more thing. They both looked up. You know what tipped me off? It wasn't the lies or the abuse. It was the moment you told the world I was deadweight. That's what made me realize you never understood the kind of man I could become. I looked straight at Brad. You didn't break me. You built me. Every insult. Every night I went to sleep hungry. Every time you made me feel like less, it became fuel. Brad sat down. Hard. My mother whispered, "What do you want from us?" I walked to the door. Nothing. The next morning, I transferred their company's viable assets to one of Ironhold's subsidiaries. I kept the name intact for now so the employees wouldn't lose their jobs. But the office? The contracts? The bank accounts? Gone. Within a month, their house hit the market. I had my team listed slightly below value to move it quickly. The buyers? A young couple with a newborn. I offered to cover their closing costs anonymously. Brad tried to call my lawyer once. Left a message about reconsidering. I didn't respond. The past wasn't something I owed anyone. Still, I couldn't stop thinking about Ryan and Caleb, Brad's sons. They were kids back then. They didn't abuse me. They didn't lock me out. They were just the ones picked over me. So I reached out through a contact and arranged anonymous job referrals for them. Nothing flashy, just a chance to land on their feet. They didn't know the source. I didn't want them to. I didn't do it for them. I did it because I refused to become Brad. One day, I passed Brad on the street. He didn't recognize me at first. His hair was grayer. He looked smaller, worn, bitter. When he did a double take, I gave him a small nod. He looked away. That was enough. I didn't celebrate right away. After everything was finalized, after the contracts were sealed and the accounts were locked, I didn't go out and pop champagne. I didn't blast a playlist or throw some symbolic victory party. Instead, I sat alone in my apartment with a cup of black coffee and stared out at the skyline. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to feel. Relief? Triumph? Closure? What I felt was weight, years of it, finally sliding off my shoulders. The next day, I called my dad. He didn't know the full story. I hadn't told him what I was planning. I didn't want to involve him. I didn't want his opinion coloring what I knew I needed to do. But I figured he deserved to know now. I told him everything. From Ironhold to the contracts. The house. The company. Brad's face when I walked in. My mother's silence. He didn't interrupt once. When I finished, there was a pause. Then he said, "Did you hurt anyone?" "No," I said. "Not unless you count pride." Another pause. Then he said, "I'm proud of you." That was it. No lecture. No guilt. Just quiet support. Like always. I booked a cruise a week later, not for revenge, not to mock the one I was left behind from, but because I wanted to rewrite that memory. So I invited my dad, my Aunt Sharon, even Tyler's mom, who'd fed me on the worst night of my life. We boarded a ship headed to the Caribbean. We sat on the same kind of sun-drenched deck they once posted about. Only this time, the laughter was real. The smiles weren't curated. And the boy who'd once slept in a borrowed blanket now ordered cocktails for the people who saved him. It was poetic, but not petty. Brad and my mother lost everything to a stranger they unknowingly invited in. They weren't conned. They weren't tricked. They chose it. They signed every page. They handed over the keys. I just gave them the pin. I never reached out to them again. But I saw enough. The house sold. Brad took a job as a contractor for a smaller firm. I heard through a mutual connection that my mother tried to start a candle business online. It didn't last. Their old life, the life they bragged about while I stood alone on that porch, was gone. And I was done looking back. I took part of the money from the asset sale and quietly donated it to a nonprofit that helps teens transition out of foster care. No plaque. No press release. Just a monthly contribution under my middle name. I knew what it felt like to be young and forgotten. That money might not fix everything, but maybe it would help some kid like me find their way a little faster. And maybe, just maybe, it'd remind someone that they were never the problem. That sometimes, the people who throw you away do it because they're terrified of how much you might become without them. I became, not in spite of what they did, but because of what I chose next. It's been 5 years since that final meeting. Sometimes I still get emails forwarded to the Eierhold inbox. Desperate messages from Brad, begging for a second chance, promising to make things right, saying he's not the same man. I delete them without reading. My mother never reached out directly, but I heard from one of her old friends that she tells people I'm estranged and cold, that I chose money over family. That version of the story makes her the victim, the grieving mother, the one who tried. She can keep it. The truth is, they lost me long before Eierhold. They lost me the day they locked the door. The day they smiled on that cruise ship, celebrating a life without me. That's what they never understood. When they discarded me, they didn't just abandon a child. They abandoned every version of the future I could have had with them. They threw away a son, a partner, a reason to try. And I didn't destroy them. I didn't ruin their lives. I simply held up a mirror and let them do the rest. Today, I run a portfolio of businesses. I keep a low profile. I don't flash wealth. I don't go looking for praise. But I take care of my people. I mentor kids from broken homes. I pay my employees well. I call my dad every Sunday without fail. One day, a package arrived at my office. No return address. Inside was a single photo. Me, maybe 9 years old, sitting on a park bench with my mother. She's smiling. I'm not. My arms are crossed. There's a smear of dirt on my shirt. Taped to the back was a note. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I hope you found peace. I didn't know if it was her handwriting or not. It didn't matter. I threw it away. Because forgiveness isn't something I owe. And peace? I already found it. In my father's arms. In the warmth of chosen family. In the quiet power of becoming who they said I'd never be. They thought they were leaving behind a burden. A mistake. Dead weight. But I wasn't dead. I was just getting started.